it's a program, usually unconscious.
You realize that it's a form of disrespect.
Yeah.
If you, at least if there's an agreed time to meet, and you don't make it.
Well, it's a control thing, so the disrespect is in the control.
Yeah.
So we find that.
Wait.
Did you make me a little something? Is that on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
You can put minerals in it as well. You go ahead.
Oh,
I'll
maybe.
get some. I've already taken my minerals. I've already taken my minerals.
The one that was reading thing?
It's okay, we'll do it later.
Good morning. Morning.
So the camera is on. So just so you know, if you're sitting here, you're making a choice to be online. I'm going to put these videos on my website as well as probably on YouTube at some
Before
point.
I washed my hair, had I known.
We were mentioning some names yesterday, weren't we?
Oh.
That's okay. If you look at John's videos, good morning, Tom.
Morning.
If you look at John's videos, there's a lot of names. And it's fine.
Hi.
Okay, the first thing we're going to talk about this morning is expectations. Page 94. Tom, would you read the little passage for us on expectations?
Page 94.
94.
What to expect. The importance of this concept cannot be overstressed. Its implications for nutrition are immediate. For improving our nutritional state may precipitate a healing crisis. It's beneficial to recognize what is happening. Most of us have been conditioned to interpret any sign of discomfort as a negative sign. Hence, when the healing crisis appears as a result of a positive dietary change, it may be seen as a sign that the new diet is not helpful and it will be abandoned. For this reason alone, it is essential that we understand this important concept. The relative severity of the healing crisis will be related to the degree of improvement in our nutritional state. Therefore, any radical improvement in diet may lead to a healing crisis of substantial proportions. This underscores the need for advising all patients about what they may expect in the way of physical symptoms as they clean up their diet. In my own experience, significant dietary improvements were accompanied by severe symptoms of healing crisis. I did not understand these at the time, as I had naively assumed that I would feel better if I ate better. In my efforts to comprehend this apparent contradiction, I consulted several different holistic professionals. Each considered the symptoms I was experiencing to be a negative result of items still in my diet. None even considered the possibility that these symptoms were a positive sign. In hindsight, I later realized that none of these professionals had any understanding of the healing crisis. Had I understood what was going on, I would have been far better equipped to deal with the intense symptoms, both physical and emotional, that I experienced. It would have made quite a difference to have known that these symptoms were a positive sign as opposed to a negative indication. While the symptoms would have been much the same, my attitude would have been much more positive. For this reason, I make a point of counseling every individual I see as to what they may possibly expect to experience as their diet improves. An excellent description of some of the symptoms we might expect during the healing crisis is found in the Essene Gospel of Peace, Book 1. And the breath of some became as stinking as that which is loosed from the bowels, and some had an issue of spittle, and evil-smelling and unclean vomit rose from their inward parts. All these uncleannesses flowed from their mouths, in some by the nose, and others by the ears and eyes. And many did not have a noisome and abominable sweat came from all of their body, all over all their skin. And on many limbs great hot boils broke forth, from which came out uncleanliness with an evil smell, and urine flowed abundantly from their body. And in many of their urine was all but dried up and became thick as the honey of bees. That of others was almost red or black, and as hard almost as the sand of rivers. And many belched stinking gas from their bowels like the breath of devils. And their stench became so great that none could bear it.
Sounds like a body electronics.
I can relate.
Can I get some of that food?
It's like those drug commercials.
Can
when
you-
it calls it-
Yeah, go ahead.
Keep going.
Can you go forward into what to expect? There's a little piece somewhere.
Going through the healing crisis. Goes into nutrition, part 2.
Go back a little bit.
Okay.
Maybe you're at the very bottom of that, what you were reading.
Okay. Skip a paragraph. Starts off, besides nutrition, many things can precipitate a healing crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Some are physical, but many are otherwise. Something as simple as the practice of love or non-resistance can bring on a healing crisis. Forgiveness can do the same, or gratitude, and so on. Anything of an uplifting nature can potentially help bring on a healing crisis. Starts off balance regeneration.
That feels complete. So to put sum it up, we can expect to heal, yet not in the mental agenda that we may have for that healing. In other words, in what order and how it should look and feel, and particulars about what we see that requires healing. So to go into, there's a paradox there, or a seeming contradiction, that we can have an expectation, we can fully expect to heal, yet not in the idea that we have of it. So to hold it's more of a faith, to hold the faith of moving through healing crises, and that healing crisis is the healing, and allowing it to be what it needs to be, without interference. And that's easier said than done. But to keep that in the forefront of the body electronics work is very important. Okay, let's look at attachment. Would you pass the book? Trudy, would you read it about attachment? Page 314.
Attachments. Our own attachments, large and small, can hinder the progress of the person on the table. While our attachments can probably not prevent their progress, at times they may make it more of a challenge. Perhaps we are attached to being of help to the other person. This attachment on our part only makes it more unlikely that we will be of any help. Or perhaps we are attached to the other person being healed or resolving a particular resistance. Again, this attachment on our part only makes it more unlikely that either of these will happen. If we can let go of our own attachments, we can be part of the solution. Hanging on to these attachments makes us merely another aspect of the problem. The essence of facilitation is to keep it simple. Just help the person to unfold in a quiet and unassuring manner. Be patient and non-resistant. Be okay with whatever happens. Disappointment can only grow where expectations have been planted. As a facilitator, if we are attached to a particular outcome, we are resisting alternatives. Through our resistance, we become a part of the problem and not a part of the solution. Resistance in helping others. In our sincere desire to be of service to another, we often find ourselves entertaining the thought that the other person is not doing it right. We may feel that they have lost their way, that they are somehow in error. And we may also sincerely believe that we know what they ought to do, the path the other should be following. We may easily fall into this trap, often precisely as a result of our sincere desire to help. We can align ourselves with truth each moment and allow others the freedom to do likewise. None of us can see another's path perfectly clearly. To believe otherwise is sheer delusion. Our own path is difficult enough to discern, as we must pass through the clouds of our own resistance to truly locate it. To find our own path is a tremendous challenge, and one that requires constant diligence. A sure way to lose our own path is to allow judgment, criticism, or condemnation to enter into our own heart, even for an instant. Therefore, when we judge that another has lost their way or missed their path, or is in some way of harmony with truth as we perceive it, we make it more likely that we will lose our own path as we stumble in our own darkness. How can we discover and dispel the darkness within ourselves by fixating upon that which we, in our resistance and judgment, perceive in others? We slow down our own progression by judging that another has stumbled. If we find ourselves disappointed in another, then perhaps we might consider that disappointment can only grow where expectations have been planted. There is no disappointment in the absence of expectation. If we have any degree of resistance to another person being just as they are, then in reality we are resisting something within ourselves. This something may or may not be present in the other person, but it is surely present within ourselves. We do not see the world the way it is, we see it the way we are. Making judgments about another person, however slight, reveals far more about us than it does about them. If we allow our attention to become fixated upon the outer, which we do so long as we resist another person in any manner, we thereby avoid looking within. Thus we perpetuate our resistance with resistance to the resistance. We cannot truly serve others so long as we resist them. We must let them be, love them as they are, not as we wish them to be or think they should be. Each in their own unique manner can be a wonderful teacher to us, but only if we open the way through non-resistance. These people whom we resist the most can be the best of mirrors for us in our own progression if only we can see them with love. Sympathy. The only person we can truly resist is ourselves, and all we can really resist in the world around us is ourselves. For the world that we see is but a reflection of who we are. It is that simple. Wonderful, wonderful.
So this is a book that can be, although it's a prerequisite reading for the point holding, it's also something to come back to. Keep it by the bedside. It's there's so many gems inside of it. We can just, go through and pick out here and there, and it will help us to remember. And also, I wanted to, can I borrow this for a second? The pink book if anyone that you know would like to read it, I'm happy to send it free through, as an ebook. And otherwise, if people want the actual printing and I pay to have it printed, then they can purchase it and I'm happy to put it in the post. Okay. I'm charging $18, which covers the printing. So from here, are there any questions? This would be a good time to have any questions put forth.
Well, let's see. I do have a question. I feel like it's just kind of out there. This is from your book. Can I just turn to the page?
Sure.
47. Okay. It says, whenever a higher law is obeyed, it necessitates breaking a lower law with the corresponding penalty for breaking a lower law. A lower law should never be broken unless it is covered by obedience to a higher law. Now, hang on one second. The other part that goes with that. So on page 77, it was the always and necessitates that I don't really understand. It says, lower law is the foundation to higher law. With that said, be aware of reactive patterns that make physical law the main focus to the exclusion of higher law.
Okay, let's go right back. I wanted to do the 10 steps of perfection. 10 steps toward perfection. This is what she's speaking of here is the step 4, which is temperance. Okay, so let's start at the beginning of these 10 steps, and then you can see the progression.
What page is that start on?
It's the 10 steps are on page 46 of the pink book. But they're also in John's book 1 of the Logic and Sequence series. Has everybody been able to gain access to the 3 books?
Yep.
And has everybody read book 1?
Yes.
Completely.
Okay, I highly recommend the metaphysical aspects of body electronics are put forth in those 3 books. They're to be read in order and read slowly and read carefully. And as sometimes John says, okay, you'll be coming through in book 1, and then he'll say, go back here,
Yes.
or look up this,
Right.
and there's it becomes a very in-depth study. So I highly recommend doing that. The second book is on healing crises. The first, book 1 is basically general principles. Book 2 is on healing crises in a very in-depth manner. Let's bring the books over and so you can see them. They are not available any longer as they are not published. There was 1,500 copies made at the time, and with diligence, which is step 10 on the 10 steps toward perfection, diligence is sometimes required in acquiring these books. Rose's husband was looking on Amazon.com every day, I'm going to say for at least a year, but I think it was longer than that, and eventually he acquired all 3 books. At one point, the book 1 was $600 and some odd. So, and he was, with his diligence, I think acquired all the books for less than $50 each. So it's all consciousness. So the first book, book 1, Logic and Sequence. Book 2, Healing Crises. Book 3, the electrification of matter. By the time we get to book 3, we're cooking.
Even with,
From the inside out.
from the inside out. even without totally, obviously understanding these books,
Yes.
as I read through them, they would just, in the morning, they would just take me into a higher state
Yes.
of consciousness,
Yes.
just reading them without even totally,
Yes.
obviously understanding.
Or into a higher state of healing crises.
Okay.
I haven't thought of it that way. And I've had sudden healing crises come forth reading the books.
Hmm.
Mhm. So be aware of that.
I found some frustration arose, because that was like a year and a half ago, your first PE that I did in Sedona. Had to read Doug's book, the first Logic of Sequence, then I had Drunballow's course the week after. I had to read both of the Flower Life books and the Living in the Heart, and I had 5 weeks to read the 5 books. And then so reading became my full-time job, and I think that's why he'd say, okay, now go back to.
John's books are not something you can put in a time frame.
Oh, I was just
No.
like, what do you mean go back?
Yeah, when you have time again to truly go back
Yes,
without
redo it,
that
yeah.
sort of deadline approach, then, that's the spirit in which they are to be read.
Yeah.
And I suggest, once you get through the 3 books, I suggest that you go back and start at the beginning and read them again. I think I've been through the 3 books possibly 6 or 7
Wow.
times, and each and every time I read them like they're a brand new book. When your consciousness changes, especially if you're doing a lot of point holding or working daily on your, with the principles, even holding your own points, that was more of my experience. I would attend all of Doug's events and do many weeks of point holding per year, yet daily I was practicing holding my own points and working with the principles. And that's very important. We can't leave the principles at the events. The principles will follow us home. And if we don't follow them, particularly when we're in healing crises, we are going to get a real stall out, and also the healing crises will be present, yet not going anywhere. So it's not like we can, many things we can put aside and attempt to forget that they exist. Body electronics won't allow us to do that. Once we've opened that pathway, whether we like it or not, we have opened up the pathways to truth, to our own truth, and they will hound us from here on in. Once an awakening has occurred, there really truly isn't any going back, whether we like it or not. So we can attempt to forget, like I said, but if it's brought into our conscious awareness, that forgetting is going to be very difficult now. Let's start at step 1. Let's see, there's 10 people here. Is there? Oh, there's 9 today. So I'll read step 1, and I'll come, and then we'll pass the book around, and then I'll do the final one. Step 1 is faith. The first step is faith, which has been described to you as the assurance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. This could be expressed another way. Although the acquisition of knowledge, through the acquisition of knowledge, one foresees as already happened the ever-present now. One must have an increasing depth of perceptive awareness in the now to understand the deepening aspects of faith. It requires an act of faith to acknowledge the yin energies of life as the end result of the creative aspects of man, the young essence within. Responsibility is claiming the perceptual nowness as one's own creation, which is only the first step of responsibility. What we spoke of yesterday as the recognition of everything external to us as being the result of our young creative aspect within and what we've added to it, emotionally, mentally, physically. Let's go back to this. Well, it's not in here, it's not written in here, but if you look further in the books, the logic and sequence books, seeing is believing, and is that something that we've heard before?
Sure.
Yes.
And that is, that's kind of a recognized scientific viewpoint
Right.
in this day and age.
Material.
How about believing is seeing?
Yeah.
Mhm. So that turns that around. So that is that understanding of not looking externally for our answers, not looking externally for and putting our energy externally, believing that that's what is, but going internally and knowing that that yang aspect is the creative force that created it in the first place. That's the faith definition of body electronics.
Okay, step 2, virtue. The second step to perfection is to appropriately apply the laws of God, carefully moving from the appropriate application of the lower laws to higher laws. Responsibility is the obtaining of the law and then coming to the understanding of the law by maintaining the law through application. The application of law through faith is known as virtue. Virtue is faithfully being obedient to the law from which one derives knowledge.
How do we do that in body electronics?
Faithfully being obedient to the law. Well, I mean, one of the laws in body electronics is it's finding those three things.
Well, more practical than that, or let's say more general than that, is the physical laws. We begin, in body electronics, we're working from the bottom up. We're going back through the healing crises from the bottom up, working with the physical laws first. So by being obedient to the physical laws, nutrition, point holding, you see, that precedes the obedience to the next set of laws, which are the emotional laws, the laws of love, which include forgiveness, which precedes the next set of laws, which is the laws of light, which is directly connected to the mental body. So those are the higher and lower laws. The question that you spoke of earlier, we cannot follow a higher law, which would be a law of light, if we have not yet mastered to some degree the lower laws. We can't jump ahead of what our ability is, our responsibility to master those lower laws.
Yes, and isn't that what a lot of systems are trying to do today?
They're trying to, just the mere fact that they're trying, but they are going forth and wanting to forget about the lower laws,
Yeah,
hoping to forget about the lower laws,
right.
and to jump forward into higher laws and basically pretend. There's nothing but pretend when one has not gained full mastery over the lower laws. The physical law, the emotional law, the mental laws.
It's the affirmations coming too soon. Before
Yes.
you've worked through.
Yes.
Yeah.
The affirmations, my feeling about affirmations is when they are of any application whatsoever, they come spontaneously. It's not something we have to think up or attempt to put into our pudding. It's a spontaneous command that comes from the heart rather than the brain. And that comes after mastery of the lower laws of physicality and emotionality and mentality.
Just a question of clarity. With reference to the mental laws and the law of light,
Yes.
did you say the law of light is that, like, would it be beyond the mental, or is it part of the mental?
The law of light is with the mental body. So when we get to the mental body and we can see the dualities, experience the dualities, bring the duality together, then we apply the law of light, which is the beginning with the violet flame.
Mhm.
That's the beginning only.
Mhm.
The beginning of the violet flame. The violet flame assists the dualities in coming together as one.
When you say the dualities, you mean seeing them in yourself?
Yes.
Yeah.
When we get to the mental body, when we get a certain amount of mastery into the emotional body,
Mhm.
and we find ourselves then, as we pass through the painful level of pain, then we find ourselves seeing the duality. We see it within us.
Mhm.
We all of a sudden have clarity around how we created it in the first place.
Mhm.
And we see our attachment to one side or the other. And when we can love that thoroughly enough and bring that together, then the law of light is where that is required. We bring that in at that time. Bert?
No, I was thinking. Can you hear me thinking?
Yeah. There's a connection there between the emotional and the mental body. Remember yesterday when we said we can access the mental body from the level of emotionality where we are?
Right, yeah.
Mhm.
So at that connector, we have to apply the emotional laws, which is the love, the forgiveness.
Mhm.
We apply that within that level of the mental body.
Mhm.
Then we see then we can bring the dualities together. The duality that we're working with. We can bring that together there. And at that point, we remember the violet flame. And we bring that violet flame in through and around us in a tube of violet fire. Sometimes, the violet flame, if you study the violet flame, or ask within the true intuition, the true tutorials that we can access, that violet flame will be shown to you. And the violet flame can be accessed in different ways. It's not just one way. Sometimes John would say, use it like a laser beam. And so I would go to that place where I could access that powerful laser beam of violet flame, and it would be just, burning through all of the resistance in all the judgment pattern that exists in the mental body. It also comes differently than that. It can come like more of a fluid form. It feels more fluid. It's very violent and it moves, but it's more fluid and flowing. It also comes like a fire, like whew, that's why you hear it sometimes being described that way. It can come like a fire and move that fire and burn it all, burn it through you. It also can come like a spiral. You can see it that way, and it will burn all of the judgment that we hold within each and every cell. within our emotional body that comes around us. Our mental body is even further out from the body. So that's why we say in, through, and around the body. It comes from the inside out. It's not an intellectual idea. That's why it's not truly accessible until we have some mastery of the lower laws of the physicality and the emotionality.
That explains it.
Uh-huh.
I see it, I've never thought of it as an intellectual.
Yes.
Mhm.
And it will come, you will feel it. You will feel it through your physicality. You will feel it in your emotions. Your emotions just melt in the presence of the violet flame.
Visually, do you experience any, like with eyes closed, insight, any like violet
Yes,
colors?
absolutely.
So is that part of it, or is it like, could be, like a possibility?
It's always part of it.
It's always part of it?
It's
the
always
vision?
part of it, because in that, at that place where we have had some mastery over the emotional body, we have full visualization internally.
Mm.
There's no longer darkness here. As we go from unconsciousness to enthusiasm and move through those 49 levels, one of the side effects is we open up the inner vision and it becomes clearer and clearer. That's why in the lower emotions we may see just a flash. In the fear we start to see more visually. In the anger we begin to see specific memory and have very full, you spoke of that yesterday, Bert, about at lunch, about how you had full visual memory.
Oh, yeah.
And in pain, that memory and that full inner vision is restored. When we go higher and start to bring together some dualities, then that inner vision expands exponentially. That's when you begin to see other realms, even in this, within this realm. We see other realms that are invisible to us now. We become aware of things we had not yet been aware of, had not yet remembered. And that's the process of going, that's why we're going through from the lower laws to the higher laws.
Much of what you're describing are experiences that I've had on the table, but with no sense of continuity or whatever the right word, process, or what was being tapped or anything like that. I mean, and therefore, a certain feeling of how do I get back to that? Does that make sense?
How do you get back to?
To the state in which you had some of these experiences on the table.
I guess that is really why we're all here, essentially.
Exactly.
So
Okay.
it's really taking what we get each and every day and working with that.
Right.
Mhm.
Including just, I shouldn't say just, but including the learning and processing what you got on the table, off the table, to go back the next time with a greater foundation.
It's
Yeah.
building upon itself,
Yeah.
yes. The physical laws are the foundation to the emotional laws. In going back through the healing crisis. That's in relation to your question, that's why the physical laws cease to exist when the emotional laws are now in place. I mean, they gradually go by the way and way.
This makes me think of this, the fact you talk about a consummate musician who knows all the everything there is to know in the basic of music.
Yes,
And
they don't have to
knowing-
practice their scales
And
anymore.
knowing that, they go out and do things that are totally outside those principles, those laws.
Yes.
In their creation.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Excellent example.
Now, Illia, when I'm meditating or just if I'm still or on the table, I always see a lot of violet,
Uh-huh.
like swirls. Like
Uh-huh.
I always thought there was third eye energy.
It could be third eye energy, just allow it.
Okay.
Allow it to do what it needs to do. The same way we allow the fire within the body, what in body electronics we call the Kundalini fire, within the body to move where it needs to move. We don't get fixated upon it, but we allow it to do what it needs to do. It goes where it needs to burn something up. And we just allow it. We let it expand. We let it go where it needs to go. Do the same thing with the violet.
Okay, so what I've been feeling too is like sometimes when I'm meditating, you know, if you, like the old TV with the rabbit ears and the TV would be all fuzzy and you'd be moving it for a second, the picture would become clear.
Yes.
And then you'd lose it again.
Uh-huh.
Meditating sometimes, it's kind of like that, and all of a sudden, just like that, I'll catch a glimpse of like, it's like a snapshot, like
Mhm.
clear, and then it's gone.
Yes.
And then things like, oh, I could be talking to somebody, all of a sudden I'll see a purple violet like glow somewhere, like I catch a corner of my eye or that. So is that the start maybe of?
Well, the inner vision, the picture, is the inner vision coming into clarity. And that will continue to come into clarity as we transmute the emotional body. So that clarity, you have, when you have transmuted the emotional body to a very, very high state in the higher emotions, it is no longer a picture. It's no longer a flash. We are on that channel. And we can direct our attention exactly where we would like it to go. We're not being tossed on the waves of hither and thither any longer. We are masters of our own boat.
That's the thing with the mind, you know, that not being able to keep the attention.
The mind is very, very limited. The human mind is very limited. Limiting.
Yes.
Yeah. See, the mental body, as we refer to it in body electronics, is outside of time and space. It's our young creative essence.
It's outside of time and space, and yet there is still duality.
Yes, it's where duality formed,
Okay.
and in our consciousness, it's where the duality formed. So coming into this experience, in this realm, we first came into our mentality.
There.
There's spirit, and then the spirit